Hello guys, Termex here, and welcome back to another Wonderlands build video. Now I know I did not think I'd be saying that sentence myself, but I got brought back because of Blightcaller. Honestly, the Blightcaller is probably the coolest class I've ever seen in the entire Borderlands series, both on a functionality standpoint and a visual standpoint. The class is just so good and has so many great synergies with every other class in the game that I was actually excited to make another build about it. Now no, this is not going to be your traditional one-shot everything build and use the most broken thing ever and have the most perfect gear, because I would like my builds to be a little bit more obtainable, even if they're deemed the Walmart version of more popular builds. But a lot of the clips that you've seen in today's video are using volatile gear, not even really primordial or ascended, other than maybe one or two pieces, so it's pretty easy to farm for as well. But the most important thing that we should get into is the skill tree. We are using Spore Warden, of course, because it's the only class I ever play. I do want to talk about Eagle Eye, which is just more gun damage, Bullseye for more gun critical hit chance. Then we're going to be using Affinity for 36% more ability damage. Now, this is going to benefit our Spirit Swarm, our Plague Storm itself, since it does use ability damage. I'll get into how Plague Storm works after we go over the skill tree. And then Medicinal Mushroom is just a must-have for me, especially in solo play and as a flak player. I kind of need this because I go down a lot. Don't judge me. And then finally, for the Spore Warden side, we are going to finish off with Quiver of Holding for the 30% more magazine size and a little bit more ammo regeneration. Just helps out a lot since we are using a Sword Explosion, which doesn't have a big mag to begin with, and it just does more damage overall when we hit that reload. Now over into the Blightcaller, we have 3 out of 5 into, whatever that word is, Virulence. You're probably going to tell me in the comments anyway, but this helps us with status effect duration and status effect chance. I only put 3 points because my class mod gives the other 2, just a lot more optimized. Then we have 5 points into Geist in the Shell, so when we hit a critical hit, there's a 20% chance to send out a Poison Bog Spirit. This spirit does ability damage, but that ability damage is based on the percentage of the crit damage that you deal. So since we are getting a higher critical hit chance, we are going to hit more crits, which gives us more opportunities to maximize the damage from Geist in the Shell. And of course, Affinity did help out as well with more damage. 3 points into Hex Machina. This gives us 15% more fire rate, and when we swap weapons, we get even more fire rate for 5 seconds. And I'll get into why this is really good, because we're going to be swapping weapons basically all the time. 1 point into Active Decay for a little bit more poison damage, but it's more or less just to go further down into the tree. 3 points into Worse Curse. Now, this is not something we're always going to be using. If you don't want to even take advantage of dark magic or don't want to be a part of it, put these 3 points over into Active Decay for a little bit more poison damage, but the fact that you can switch to a dark magic Buffmeister, for example, and get a bunch more ability damage, it does a lot of work. Or if you just switch to a dark magic weapon, you will do more spell damage for whatever spell you decide to use. And now we have Bog Down. This is just basically the Cape Tide spell, or whatever the Tide spell is called, within a action skill, or a skill point rather. Now with this, if you deal non-status effect poison damage, and some people are kind of confused by this, non-status effect poison damage is basically just shooting an enemy with your poison weapon. That's all it is. When you shoot an enemy with your poison weapon and you don't get a poison proc, that is when you get this Bog Down to proc. So we are actually using gear that allows us to do this all the time, soaking our enemies without the need of a spell or a class mod, just using this internal Bog Down ability. 3 points into Frostbite. Now you may be wondering, why the hell term are you specking into melee damage benefits for hitting a frost status effect? Well, this also boosts critical hit chance by 12%, and it stacks up to 3 times. So, but since we're using a Sword Explosion, we are getting that 12%, and if we hit it on 3 enemies, that is a whopping 36% bonus critical hit chance, which is great. And then 5 points into Burnt's Offering. When we hit a fire status effect, we get bonus gun damage and spell cooldown rate, and this also stacks 3 times. This is great because who's gonna miss out on 27% bonus gun damage when you're just applying fire? And the way we're actually going to be applying this fire damage is through the body rune, because the body rune gives you fire damage on a kill. So once you kill an enemy, just shoot a bunch of enemies, get those fire stack procs, and you will get that damage rather quickly. And then 3 points into Toxicity. No, I'm kidding. Now 3 points into Toxicity. Whenever we do apply a poison status effect, which we are going to be getting through using our Plague Storm itself, we will get critical hit damage, we will get companion damage and action skill cooldown rate, and these effects all stack up to 3 times. As you see, this class really centers around different elements, but we have so many different elements built into our gear that we really have the availability to use whatever gun we wish. 1 point into Restore the Veil. You don't really need this. If you don't want it, go over into Affinity, put it there, but maybe you can't get the capstone, so maybe I'm wrong on that. But this is just really good because if you're not a Graveborn, dark magic isn't that useful to you. I mean, sometimes with health, but shield in this game goes down so quick, and I just like getting that shield regen when I am using dark magic. You can move this point to where you see fit, but me personally, I like it here. And then finally, the capstone, which is Spirit Swarm. Now, when we apply a status effect of any type, we send out this cool little companion guy, and he will seek out random enemies, dealing status effect damage based on the applied status effect type. Now, if you are wondering how you get this thing to actually use the status effect you want, the way this works is we need to go to the firing range because I do want to explain this correctly. Alright, to show this off, we're going to get a kill or just shoot an enemy with the Queen's Cry, and we do get cryo. And you see this little spirit guy? Now that we applied a cryo effect, he's just going to chase people. And a lot of people are confused. They're wondering how they're only getting one element. All you have to simply do is switch to another elemental weapon, which I don't know if I have. I do. I have a dark magic. So if I switch to a dark magic and start using this, and I apply the dark magic status effects, the Angry Orb Man is gonna also be dark magic, but it won't switch mid-fight. You can't switch to a cryo and then get it to a different element. It will be that element until it runs out. But that's not the only cool thing. If you do have the Queen's Cry, it's going to be vital in my opinion. If you do know spell shot stacking, which does exist, you're basically going to do that, because if you look into the skill tree Whisper of Rot, when we apply a status effect, our elemental damage is just straight up increased and it stacks up to 10 times. But since we are using all Blightcaller power, we are getting 62% elemental damage from Whisper of Rot. Plague Storm's doing a lot more damage, Geist in the Shell is doing a lot more damage, and like I said before, Geist in the Shell is when we hit a crit, we get that chance for that little poison guy to fly out. But a way to actually make this a lot better, the Queen's Cry for this build with taser is kind of needed. This is the only piece of gear I would 100% say you need, but what you do is you switch over to your taser. You can shoot right away, but since we do have the Quiver of Holding, is that the name of the skill? Am I learning names? Yes, I am learning the names. We get up to a 14 taser size, so when we shoot targets, all these tasers are going to be pretty cool. Now, it's not going to show off on these guys because obviously they're not targets, but look at all these crits. Each one of these crits passively has a 20% chance to send out a little spirit guy, and it is so freaking good when you're fighting enemies, just to spam tasers and all that, but it has a double use. As you can see at the bottom of our screen, we are getting these stacks of the Whisper of Rot, and we need to get 10 stacks to get the max benefit. Traditionally, you have to keep applying status effects, but the taser is so damn good at it. You just have to shoot this at an enemy or a swarm of enemies. Even a single enemy will do just fine, and you're going to be doing insane things. You see, the taser alone could probably kill some enemies alongside Geist in the Shell abilities, so just alone, this one gun has so much utility for this build. I wanted to point that out because it is important, and I don't want people to get all confused. But now for the other important stuff, let's get into the gear. I will be very clear with this. I did use 1 or 2 items from the homie Moxie's build. He made a really nice build with the new Blightcaller, so check him out as well. Sorry, Mox, you know how farming be. But we are using a volatile sword explosion. Amazing, terrific, probably my favorite gun in the game. But if you had a better version of this, you would be melting everything faster than I am, or even a better version of the Queen's Cry. I just don't really want to use save editors. I get it. It probably helps, but I want builds to be obtainable for everyone. I don't want to have the standards so high with these builds that you're like, I need the Ascendant Primordial gear, I need to farm the perfect triple roll. You don't need to do all that. You could have a perfectly fun build without putting in 1,000 hours onto this game, and I just want to prove that. Throw in whatever you want in these other 2 slots, whatever you prefer to use, just toss right in, and they will do pretty damn well. For the melee, nothing special. All I did was get on action skill active. We increase the overall frost damage we deal by 50%. Over into our rings, we do have a status effect damage ring, and when we apply a status effect, the effects of this ring are increased by 50% for 8 seconds, giving us bonus status effects all around the board. And then yes, my Shark's Bane from like every build I've ever made, I just got a double shotgun crit roll on it. I love this thing, and it does a lot of damage. Yeah. And then as for the class mod, we are using a Cataclysm. I've chose this because when we apply a poison status effect, there's a chance we get even more poison, which is great. Stablemancer power is kind of a bummer. It's not main Blightcaller power. If you can get a main Blightcaller comm, you would have 20-ish% more damage than you see in this video, but this just had the great rolls on it, plus the ability critical hit chance, which is important for our Plague Storm to deal the max amount of damage it can. But I showed this earlier, but this is the body rune, which will help us apply the fire status effects to keep those going, and it's just a great shield overall. And you may be wondering, what about the poison? We have to apply it through the Buffmeister, so we're not stuck using poison-only weapons. This will basically turn whatever weapon we do have into a poison-dealing machine. And finally, yes, this is the amulet I yoinked from Moxie, I apologize, but it's basically perfect. Primordial with poison damage, Blightcaller power. It's going to be benefiting everything. Status effect damage, it's okay for this build. It's not a status effect central build, but it certainly does help, but that's not the main focus of what I was going for. But definitely, if anything that you learn from here, if you're on console and you don't have the availability to download my saves, go for Blightcaller power and go for ability critical hit chance or ability critical hit damage, or even just gun damage if you prefer. The goal is to gain as much Blightcaller power as possible with a decent amount of ability damage and status effect chance. I showed the skill tree, I showed some tips, I showed the inventory. That is really it, guys. This is a very fun build, but if you are wondering how the cycle works, like I said before, we're going to reset everything. Start the battle off with your taser, get all your taser stacks going until you see that big number 10, and then you're wondering, oh, that fire rate ability from earlier. Well, that fire rate ability will take place the second you switch, so we could shoot the sword explosion pretty damn quick, but it could even go quicker if we swap again and then we use the Buffmeister. You can see how quick this thing just unloads into enemies. Pop off your storm and you're already doing damage. You're already better off and you're doing great. But yeah, that's basically how the cycle goes, and that is the build. If you want to download it, it's in the description below. And if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you guys leave a like on it, as it really helps me out a lot and spreads my content more out to the Wonderlands and the Borderlands community. And make sure you guys subscribe so you never miss out on another video from me. But you guys have a terrific day, stay safe, and I'll see you all later.